Welcome back. I'm here with Dr. Ana Lucia Araujo, professor of history at Howard University. Doctor, thanks for joining us. You've written a book here, Reparations for Slavery and the Slave Trade. What is this about?
This is a book that tells the story of the demands of reparations for slavery that it started already in the 18th century, not only here in the United States, but also in other countries that were also slave societies, such as Brazil, Cuba, and so on.
You say the former slaves were asking for pensions for the work that they had done all those years, which they didn't get paid for.
Exactly. In the United States, we had, at the end of the 19th century, a movement led by a woman and a number of elderly men and women who were former slaves and who requested the government of the United States to pay them pensions for the time that they worked as slaves.
And I think I may know the answer to this, but why did these demands always fall to the side? Why were they never met?
They are never met because many of these movements, they were greatly repressed. Then the leaders of these movements for pensions at the time, they were sent to prison, they were persecuted by federal authorities and so on. And the priority, even among the abolitionists, was always to pay compensations, financial compensations to the former slave owners.
Oh, so, okay, compensation to the former slave owners, make them whole. I get it. So fast forward, there was a time, there was a lot of talk about reparations, okay? It never seemed to take hold. It never seemed to go very far. I'm going to guess a lot of that is because we've come so far, and a lot of people are thinking, a lot of white people are thinking, I had nothing to do with that. That was so many years ago. That would be unfair. We're already into deficit spending. Where would the money come from? Am I right or wrong?
You are right, but you are wrong as well, because at this time when these individuals, they were asking for pensions, the former slaves, they were still alive, and slavery was just some years back. Then this idea that it was long ago does not really hold, because at the time there was money to pay for the former slave owners. And on the other hand, these people, they were still alive and they needed this compensation at the time. The option that was made was to pay to the former slave owners. They received compensations everywhere in the United States, here in Washington, D.C., in the British Caribbean, in the French colonies of the Caribbean, and other parts of the United States.
And you've also heard comparisons, you know, the Japanese, when they were put in camps, you know, during the Second World War, you know, reparations were made for them. I'm trying to bring it up today, the case to be made today for reparations. What's the case?
The case to be made is that the racism, racial inequalities, there are still legacies of the period of slavery. They remain very alive. And the means that these reparations can take do not necessarily mean direct payments to direct individuals. But there are measures that could be done in order to address these inequalities.
And this debate, this discussion is going on as some of the universities and some of the companies uncover their histories and realize they had direct ties to the slave trade. And so now descendants are coming forward. And what are we going to do? If you want to talk about Georgetown, we can talk about a lot of institutions. Does that not add fuel to this conversation?
Exactly, it adds. And about 2 or 3 years ago, the Caribbean community, the nations of the Caribbean, they addressed demands of reparations to the former metropoles, Portugal, Britain, France, and so on. Then this conversation is always coming back because the legacies, they continue to be there. And of course, they take a variety of forms. It's not then nations requesting to nations, descendants of former slaves asking to the universities, to companies, and so on.
Yeah. Any headway? I mean, are you seeing any areas where companies are doing this right, are finding a way, you know, if not to make people and generations whole, but at least visible signs that this was wrong, an apology, this is what we can do to at least try and make amends?
Yes, indeed, we have reparations that are symbolic reparations and also financial and material reparations. In terms of symbolic reparations, they are much more accepted. You are seeing this here in Washington, D.C., for example. Some days ago, the Catholic Church unveiled plaques at the National Cathedral, yes, honoring former slaves. Georgetown did these symbolic measures, took these symbolic measures as well. Many universities in the United States, they are doing. You are seeing commemoration, you are seeing also monuments that are being unveiled, the National Museum of African American History that has this large section on slavery. Then all these are symbolic reparations, and we see apologies as well. But financial and material reparations is a more complicated discussion, and this is what I do with the book.
Dr. Araujo, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming.